nel dolce incanto del mattino, il mare ti ha portato a me.
So, are you seeing anyone back home?
No, no, I'm not. I'm totally available.
Fetch me my checkbook.
You've thrown quite enough of our money away.
I won't be alone here. You're never at the house.
Oh, that's rich coming from you. Is it Ruth's Steakhouse or Chris's Steakhouse? I can never figure that out. Just pick a name already.
You fuckface, get your wife. You fucking rich people, you make me sick.
This country is full of crazy people.
Fear, start with you. Can you share a time you blocked your emotions so you could win a game?
No.
Okay.
This is a full service station, sir. I'm gonna pump that gas for you.
I don't drink coffee. It makes me agitated.
I told you to leave. I told you to leave us alone. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Please leave us alone. This is a family matter.
Just like that. Hey. Chin up. We all fall down at some point. Don't ever be afraid to get back up. Hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
Heard it.
You don't know how much I admire you. You could be president one day.
President, huh? I like the sound of that.
Thank you for joining us on the Downing Cut today. We have a triple monumental individual here in the Pacific Northwest, David S. Hogan, who is an actor, an educator, and a producer from the Seattle, Washington area. He has been producing narrative film projects in the Pacific Northwest since 2012, with 28 producer credits on IMDb, including 3 feature films. As an actor, he has been working professionally since 2000, appearing on stage, on screen, and in voiceover. Welcome to the Downing Cut, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you because you have such a diverse perspective on film, and you've been in the industry for so long. And this is the guy, folks, if you want to learn acting. This is the guy. He has the school. Him and his wife, Angela, have the school, the Mighty Tripod, and we're going to get into that, trust me. But first, David, I always ask my guests this. How did you start into acting? What sparked that interest?
Well, I grew up here in Seattle, and pretty awesome parents, so they exposed me to a lot of great culture, you know, music, theater, obviously film and television. I was just always around really interesting art, and I was exposed at a young age to great stuff. I took an acting class in high school, but it wasn't, it wasn't serious. I was just kind of goofing around. I think it was my senior year, and I think I just needed a class, taking electives at that point. So I didn't take that seriously at all, like not at all. And then when I was at Seattle U, I started as a singer. So I joined the choir. Longish story is that, when I was a kid, I was, let's just say I was mischievous. Okay. I got into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So those are two things. So I guess part of it was like, I'm going to join the choir. That'll clean up my attitude. And my mom was in the choir, and there were, really attractive women in the choir. And so, yeah, I'll join the choir. So once I found this outlet for my voice, I was like, man, this is really great. And, we did choral performances, and there were audiences, and you get feedback, and you get that immediate kind of reaction to music. And then I did a musical, at Seattle U, the Three Penny Opera. That was my first. I think that was my first play. Did a few more shows while I was at Seattle U. Took a few classes, and then when I graduated in 2000, I just started pursuing theater work, and there you go.
That was it. The bug bit you, and you just continued.
Yeah, it did. It kind of bit me. I mean, I remember seeing a play when I was at Seattle U, and I was like, I guess part of me just I wanted to be up there. I wanted to participate. So yeah, started with singing, taking classes, kind of falling in love with Shakespeare, and then just really enjoying acting. Once you're doing a show and actually engaging and connecting and performing, you're right. That's what they call it, the bite. There's this.
Yeah.
It's like an infection. It's like once you feel it, you really love it, and you want some more.
What caused you to kind of tip that point into film?
Maybe I just get I don't know if I get bored, or maybe I like trying new things. I mean, I've tried a few different side hustles since getting out of college. I had a dog training and a dog walking service for a while, which I really loved, and I contemplate going back to that kind of world often. So maybe I was just like, yeah, I like theater, but I kind of want to scratch this other itch. Maybe that was part of it. I'm trying to think of my first on-camera adventure, and I don't know. I don't remember what it was. Like back so long ago, like back in around 2000, 2001, there's a lot of auditions happening at TPS, and you go down to TPS and you audition for all kinds of stuff. There was movies, short films, student films, all that kind of jazz. So I think it was just curiosity. And also, when you're an actor, the jobs are not just, people aren't just throwing work at you. At least not for me. It's not like I'm just like, oh my God, no, you guys, I'm just too busy. I have 10 shows lined up this year. No, we're always kind of hustling and trying to find the next job, either for a creative outlet or for a paycheck. So it probably was also, financially motivated. Like I need to find some more work. All right. Cause daddy needs some new shoes.
So this is a question to ask everyone, and it's going to be specifically, you're going to bring it to life because you are the superior expert in this area. What makes a good actor?
What makes a good? Such a great question, because there's not a really good answer to it. It could be, you could answer that in so many different ways, because also not everybody agrees on what a good performance is, right? You could talk about an actor's performance and line up a bunch of people, and it's very subjective. Oh, I don't like that actor. Oh, I love that actor. It's very strange. But part of it is vulnerability and honesty, right? You have to be able to memorize words. Okay. You can't, some actors will use cue cards, which is just like, oi. But I think from like a craft and a human standpoint, it is this kind of vulnerable thing, at least when we think about dramatic work anyway. Then it's the vulnerability, maybe, and the honesty and presence, right? But then you look at situational comedies or comedy, and you're like, yeah, if you don't have timing, if you can't move the rhythm of these words quickly through the gift of gab, you're not going to do very well in some kind of genres. So some actors are specialists, like they're only good at this one thing. Some actors seem to be able to do a lot of different things. And I think if you want to do a lot of different things, that's where either you're just maybe born with this gift, which I think that kind of thing is very rare. I think people who can literally do it all are people who have gone through a lot of training and have done theater and taken a bunch of classes, and they're working on their craft, they're working on their voice, they're working on all kinds of things on a daily basis to kind of really expand how many things they can do. I mean, again, I grew up in the theater. I didn't grow up in the theater, but my acting started in my mid-20s in the theater. And even then, it was like, are you a triple threat? Can you sing and dance and act? Because if you can do all three of those things, you're going to have you're going to be able to compete for more jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a hard question to answer, but I know it has to do a lot with vulnerability, honesty, and then just technical skill will also get you a long way.
Yeah. Well, that's a good answer. I mean, you've narrowed it down, so that helps a lot of people. You know, our audience is new to the industry or coming into the industry or been in the industry for at least 5 years and kind of sharpening their saw. So I think it's good to understand the perspective from someone who is an instructor.
Yeah, I mean, because even there's also lots of great wisdom in the difference between an audition and a job. There's also the way you approach those two different things can also be quite different. And then, of course, nowadays, all actors have to learn or have to know how to put together self-tape auditions. We are very rarely, if you're doing on-camera work, we are not in the room as often with other humans, getting interaction, getting feedback. It's very frustrating for a lot of actors to not have that extra set of eyes to go, hey, that was great. What about, can you think of it this way and try it like that? Like, we don't get that. We send in a tape and just pray to the acting gods that we're remotely close to what they're looking for. So learning how to audition, Bryan Cranston has this very famous interview that kind of circulates, and he talks about with auditioning, it's, you know, knowing your job. Like you have to know what the job is to create a character, understand the scene, present it in your audition, and then walk away, and then just kind of move on. Because if we dwell on it, that becomes a whole, and then it turns into like, oh my gosh, then the brain just starts going crazy. So if we can do our best, forget the rest, my old Tony Horton quote from P90X, right? If we can do that, create the character, execute the scene, know what the scene's about, and then just let it go, that's best. That's really a great way to do it from a mindset standpoint. Because I think for acting, because there is so much rejection, at least in my experience, but most actors say the same thing. To kind of stay in it for a long enough time to find success, you need to be able to have a good head and a good heart to go, all right, I'm probably not going to get every job. I'll probably get one out of, I don't know what the numbers are, but you don't get most of them. So it can be discouraging sometimes.
Two things just popped in my head. Yeah. Tony Horton, I would say that you could probably do his bio if they were to hire you. I'm like, kind of looks similar. The other thing is, you talked about energy and you're doing an audition. What about theater? I mean, theater, you get a lot of energy. And I know you just got off of, I don't know if it's still going, Titanish.
Yes, we start back up and we have 3 weeks. And it's selling like hotcakes. We might even add a day. We might add a show because this thing is selling out, which is so cool.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, when it comes to energy, though, you have that feedback from the audience. You can feel it. But on film, it's just quick, click.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself being drawn? Is this why you go back to theater, or is it just to keep your kind of your toes up?
Yeah, it's definitely why I wanted to do this particular show, because I saw it last year, and it's just a crowd pleaser. It's just a fun comedy. And, you know, I think that in a lot of ways, I'm still learning, I'm still figuring out why I do what I do. And I think that's what we talk about a lot in our studio. Like, we ask the question, like, what is your why? Why is it? Do you know, or can you at least approximate now? Like, what is it about this acting thing? Why are you doing it? What are you after? And I think for me, I like being involved in things that have an immediate effect on people and change how they feel. And I like to do it in a way that makes them laugh. And there's just something about giving people 90 minutes of joy to, I think a lot of us are living with an abundance of stress and anxiety. It's probably been around forever. It's part of the human condition, but man, oh man, things are, they can be really stressful. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is just to give people a good time. And it's great. So yeah, the energy, that feedback is, you don't quite get that on camera. Cause you know, if you're doing a comedy, right, the crew is, even if they want to laugh, everybody's supposed to be very, very quiet, because if you have people laughing off camera, that's going to ruin a take. So you might get a little feedback after, you know, you get a sense, you get a vibration from the crew, but doing it for an audience, you get even more of that instantaneous feedback that what you're up to is really it's giving them a good time, which I kind of like.
How do you balance the different demands of expectations of being an actor, a director, and a producer all on the same project?
That's a good question. I'm just noticing this light. I'm like looking. I just looked at my face. I'm like, oh, there's this light that's right there. I get obsessed because I'm also, as you know, a photographer. So I'm like, light.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna ignore it because I'm too.
Okay.
I'm not gonna fix it. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna be producing. We're in the middle of production for a short film called A Trapdoor that Angela is starring in, and I'm directing. We're co-directing. She directed the first few days of filmmaking that happened already. We have 4 more days of filmmaking later this month, and I'm in the film as well as directing it and producing it. I think it'll be interesting. You have to be able to trust your team, right? Because when I'm in front of the camera, I mean, obviously because of technology, the nice thing is, hey, we can film something and immediately I can go look and watch playback and get a sense of, all right, at least I can give myself some direction that way. But I can also ask, our production manager, or I really trust my DP. I can ask him for feedback. So I think in this particular situation, it's going to be okay. Now, when I think about that, and I know it happens more than just with Clint Eastwood, right? Because I grew up with Clint, right? I grew up, my dad loved Clint Eastwood, watched a lot of his films. He's famously a actor director. That seems bananas because Clint is often the lead in his movies, and that seems like a task I'm probably not ready for, and that's fine. That's fine. I don't it's not that I want to
Okay.
only direct myself.
Tell me why. Why? How come you're not ready for that?
Well, I don't know. I like to be realistic. I like to not that I don't think getting out of the comfort zone is wise and it's great for learning and growth, but I just don't think I'm quite ready for that. I would rather, if I was going to be a lead as an actor in a film, I would just rather have someone else directing me, I think.
Does it help just to kind of keep things separate so you can just focus on one task?
Yeah, just kind of so I can just stay in the lane of I just want to be able to connect as an actor and do the actor's job rather than trying to do the actor's job and the director's job, which is, as you know, it can be very complicated. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot to do.
So when you envision a project as a director or producer, let's just say Trapdoor, what you're working on now, how do you ensure that your vision is realized in your acting performance? Is it just by bouncing it off other people?
Well, I think more about outside of my own performance, I think a lot of it has to do with communication. You got to have a good script. I become much more interested in projects that are well written, obviously, but I think a lot of us when an actor is first coming up, I think we don't have the privilege to be super picky about stuff. We're just like, oh my gosh, I need to take this mediocre script and figure out how to make it amazing through a good performance, a vulnerable performance, an honest performance, a connected performance, or whatever. But when you have really good writing, I do feel like it does get a little bit easier because things just kind of click when you're working with great writing. So from the director's chair on this project, it is really about the communication and the team building to figure out how to get the people in the room that not only you trust and you respect as artists, but also people you like spending time with. Because once you're on set, they can be a great artist, but if they're a jerk, that's going to create some problems as well. I don't direct myself all that often, so maybe I'll have more feedback for you about that after this project is over. Luckily, like I was saying, I'm much more of a supporting role, so I think it'll be okay.
Could you share with us a challenging aspect of a role that you acted in that kind of resonated with you? And did it stick with you, or how are you able to walk away from that?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think that question comes up a lot in this world of acting, especially when it's usually when actors are portraying characters that are going through very heavy emotions, heavy meaning intense on the more wounded in the world of grief or pain, like all of those emotions that are associated with negativity, which I don't think they're negative, but anything when the character is experiencing a lot of pain, or maybe the character is, think about someone like, if you have to portray a character who is very evil or dark, but it's also realistic, like an accurate portrayal of a serial killer, like things like that. I suppose for some people that could be problematic, but I think an actor needs to figure out a healthy way to leave work at work. Meaning, if you have a craft, if you have a process, then on set you should be able to access emotions and experience painful things and be in a scene that's very heavy and very dramatic, where people are either fighting or yelling or anything. I mean, scenes are meant to be, a lot of scenes have all that kind of drama. But at the end of the day, I think a skilled actor will have a process. So when they leave set and when they get home, they're not bringing all that emotional baggage to their family, or if they live alone, they're not bringing it back with them. And I suppose it could be any kind of process, but I tend to lean on things like meditation or yoga, or just sometimes as simple as just deep breathing, cleansing. Like I've been enjoying lately just going out and just watching the sunset. You know what I mean? Just kind of connecting with nature, just so we can lead. And because at the end of the day, I mean, we're telling stories. It's not, it is real, but it's not real. So it's like there's this balance. And I mean, I do understand that maybe sometimes it hasn't affected, I don't think it's affected me in a very negative way, even though I've played strange characters or bad guys or hostile characters before. But I just like to, I'm playing in my imagination. I'm doing this very creative, collaborative thing. And even though I might be playing a character who's very wicked, um, maybe I can identify parts of me where that feels truthful, or a side of me that where that idea might exist. But at the end of the day, I'm going to close the door and go, all right, that's not me. This relationship that I'm having with these fictional characters, these aren't real. And so we can, and also on a set, you can also figure out a way, if it's like a drama between a couple, I think the actors, or the actor and the director, or an intimacy coordinator, you can figure out ways to kind of let that go before you leave set. There could be a process very similar to meditation, or just coming together and breathing and doing a few things. So we're like, all right, and that was work. And now we're going to walk away and we're going to go back to our lives. And tomorrow we're going to dive back in again and do these very challenging things. But we don't want it to bleed over into our lives, because that can be very unhealthy.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's, very interested into method acting, just getting into that role on screen, outside of screen? What kind of advice would you give them? I mean, would you recommend meditation? Would you recommend yoga to them to kind of loosen up?
I think method acting is it's very misunderstood, and there are different methods of acting. When people think of method acting, they're thinking about this way of acting that I think originated in like the 1930s. So Stanislavski was this great Russian teacher, and a lot of American folks got connected with his way of teaching, and then all these different kind of offshoots of training came from that. So if someone's really interested in learning about method acting, they should train with someone who teaches the method. And as far as I know, I don't think those folks are even around the Seattle area. In the Seattle area, a different method, but something similar, called the Meisner technique, is a way to connect with and to explore acting, invented by a guy named Sanford Meisner, who was also connected with Lee Strasberg, who invented the method. But the method is very misunderstood, and most people who are casual actors, they just think it means I must stay in character all of the time. And if I'm playing a savage bastard in the film, then I should act like a savage bastard the whole time and never break character. And that is bananas. That's an awesome way to like get kicked off of my film set. I'm like, when I say quiet on the set, and if I'm being Clint Eastwood, whenever you're ready, because he doesn't call action, right? And I think that's a great way of directing. Instead of like, all right, guys, and ready, set, and action. It's like so weird.
Yeah.
That style of directing or calling action is just so bizarre to me, like shocking me into act. What if it's a very quiet moment and there's a action, and you're like, good Lord, man, I was trying to have this really soft moment. Stop yelling at me. But in my opinion, I mean, you can read so many stories of actors just taking this method idea way too far and then just acting like a-holes because they're like, well, but I'm being the character, and you're like, not just stop. It's just silly. I mean, one of my favorite actors is Daniel Day-Lewis, and he, I don't know what his method is, but I do know that he likes to immerse himself in the role and kind of stay in character even when the camera's not rolling. However, similarly with Christian Bale, I've heard stories where he does the same kind of thing. So let's say if I was doing a role and like maybe I had an accent and they're like, cut, what I would do is I'd hold on to my accent the whole time on set, but I could come up and talk to somebody about, the catering, or I could talk about Angela or Bruno, and I'd keep the personality of the character, but I wouldn't be like, oh, I don't know who you are. My name is this, you know what I mean? It's like I feel like actors should have permission to do whatever they need to do. But when you start negatively affecting the people that you're working with, I've just got a problem with that. It's too much.
That's good advice, though. I mean, I think that's, a lot of the individuals who are new, they look at the A-listers and they go, oh, I got to be like them. I got to do it like them. And so it's that imitation of what are they into? And then they start categorizing what technique to go into.
Yeah.
With the Mighty Tripod, what technique would you recommend, or what technique do you guys offer?
I mean, we do things we kind of use our own experience, and, as theater actors, Angela went to college. She trained at a BA program in Ohio, I think in Otterbein. I did some training at Seattle U. I'm a classically trained actor. I've learned how to do Shakespeare, so I have a lot of text-based stuff that I go into. A lot of the stuff that we apply we're kind of borrowing from Stella Adler and Sanford Meisner and a few of those things. And we're kind of using all of these different techniques to teach folks how to relax, for one thing, which is that's a big part of method training, is learning how to relax and concentrate. And obviously, I don't disagree with that. If we can't relax and get rid of tension, all of those blocks can show up in the work. So relaxation, meditation, yoga, breathing techniques, that comes into the classroom. Just simple script analysis, being able to look at a screenplay or a teleplay and to kind of decode it so you can understand what's going on between the lines or behind the lines, how to develop a character, even doing things like animal embodiment, unusual things. I mean, we do an assortment of things to try to get folks out of their heads so they're not just thinking the role, but they're actually experiencing the role and using because there's a lot of different ways in, and so we like to explore and use a variety of techniques that we find useful, while also giving our students the permission to go out and kind of find their own method that works the best for them. And we do a lot of stuff in the classroom where we're putting actors in front of the camera. We have auditioning classes, so a lot of standing on a mark, learning how to audition. But we're also watching back footage. We're giving critiques of performances. We're filming scene work. We're providing the footage so actors get to look at themselves and kind of see what's going on. So I think it's a very practical and modern way of getting folks ready to compete without going to, not that I don't think like a 2-year conservatory program or 2 years of film school, or all that stuff is great too. But if you can't access that for financial reasons or because of the time commitment, I think that what we offer gets folks the ability to at least start competing for roles.
It's good to know. I think it's useful to know that you're taking tools from different techniques and kind of molding them in there. Just not saying this is the only thing we're going to teach and this is the only way we're going to look at it. So I think that's huge for a lot of people to actually understand that you can pull different areas. and utilize
Absolutely.
them under your belt.
Absolutely. I mean, there's who have I been, Willem Dafoe recently. I've been watching a lot of his stuff. It's even the pronunciation of his name.
Yeah. I love
It
that.
looks like it's Willem, but I heard him pronounce his own name as William. I'm like, have I been calling you Willem for all this time and your name is Willem Dafoe? Anyway, he has a very interesting background when it comes to performance, and the way that he talks about the work is very inspiring and intriguing to me. You have also Chris Walken. I was watching one of his videos, and he talks about just he'll just work on his lines. He won't even look at the scene. He just like, what are my lines? And he'll play with them. He'll find musicality. He is renowned for just the way he talks, the way he delivers his lines in these various characters he plays. And so there's so many ways to participate and to create in this industry. And so I think actors who are just getting into it should just start exploring. Find a safe place to engage and to learn, and then, follow your curiosity. And that's a Daniel Day-Lewis quote. Because I watch his interviews and I'm just, it's no wonder he is such, many folks, myself included, he's up there in like the top 5, if not one of, it's amazing. You hear him talk and you're like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
Let me ask you about, from your directing perspective, have you ever had to navigate the dynamics of collaboration with actors and crew members? Any kind of issues, and how did you resolve those?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few times you're going to run into things on set where things get tense or tough, and I think that as much as possible, if you can resolve, if it's like, especially if it's with the crew, right? If you can have those battles away from the cast, like try to find places where you can have these passionate discussions or disagreements without that bleeding into the rest of the set and affecting other people. Obviously trying to stay cool, calm, and collected, which is sometimes tricky for me because I'm an actor. So I am a passionate person. I'm a passionate, emotional person. So even myself, I have to always remind myself, take a breath, think before you speak. Those kind of things will help me. But it's also a great learning experience for me, because when I have been on enough sets where I'm like, oh, I just know that I'm not going to work with that person again. You just figure things out and you start to develop your team or your preferred team. I mean, because sometimes you have an opportunity to create something and you reach out to your favorite people and they're like, oh, sorry, I'm not available, or on vacation, or, oh, sorry, David, you don't have enough money to pay me for that one, or whatever. Sometimes you can't get your favorite people. So you have to reach out to your second favorite people, or you reach out to people who are brand new, which is also, it's a little risky to do that, but it's also I encourage that too, because you never know. You have a new collaboration with a new person, you can unlock a lot of great stuff. And so I'm not afraid of making new connections. but I'm also cautious because it does really help to know you're with a team and the vibe works and the personalities gel, because that feels nice.
I think that's the biggest thing is understanding the personalities of people, who works well together and who doesn't. And even if it's not you, it's your team that you're working with currently, you know who not to put together in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Oh, and pre-production. The last thing is try to budget time for adequate pre-production, just so you can have a plan. I've been on a few shoots where we didn't have enough time for pre-production, so then when you're on set, all of these last-minute decisions are happening, and it can be a little more chaotic. So if you can budget time and resources for pre-production, that's usually pretty helpful.
How has your acting changed over the years? I mean, you went to school,
Yeah.
graduated, theater. How has it evolved over time to like today?
Well, I would like to think that it's improved, but I don't know if that's true or not. I think sometimes it feels more comfortable. I feel like I don't get quite as nervous when I enter a new set because I feel like I have an idea of like, I've been here before and I know what I'm doing. And I think the confidence is something that's definitely there, because early on, sometimes I would feel out of place. Like, oh gosh, I hope they like me, or I hope I know what I'm doing. But now, since I've been on enough film sets, when you enter the space, I will usually, because for the most part, in the Northwest, if we're not producing, I mean, occasionally I'll have a leading role, but a lot of my roles have been supporting roles in the world of television or larger feature films. Northwest actors, or myself, my experience anyway, is usually you're a day player, or sometimes you get, if you're lucky, you get like 4 days, but you're still a co-star. But I still, when I get there and I'm kind of the new person on the day, I think the confidence at least gives me a little more comfortability to be like, hey guys, hi, how's it going? Just positive attitude, connecting with the director for the first time. How can I make this work for you? Because I think at the end of the day, especially when you are a supporting role, I'm really curious, and I'm there to help with the director's vision and to fit in to this scene and to help them tell their story. So I'm just there to collaborate. I'm there to work, and I think that has been a big change for me. So I'm not just focused on the acting and the character and in my own kind of world. I'm like, hey, let's work together. What are your thoughts? This is kind of what I've thought about, but does that work for you? Is that in alignment with what you're thinking? Because if, especially folks who are a little newer to the business, and which is very different from theater, is that almost exclusively in the on-camera world, the actor is preparing their performance by themselves at home without a director, and then they arrive to set. Maybe the director saw your self tape, maybe not. I'm sure there's plenty of times where the first time the director is really seeing your work is like right there on set, especially if it's a really small part. So that kind of process can be a little frightening because you've received no feedback. You got the job, so when you get to set, I just like to talk to the director as soon as I can and go, hey, how's it going? My name's David. Maybe you saw my self tape, and but maybe this is the first time I've met them. And in my experience, which is probably not unique to me, a lot of my jobs, a lot of the work that I do, it's because I've collaborated with either the director before or someone on the team. It's a small enough industry locally where if you do a good job and you're nice to people, you're going to get rehired. And that's why the casting director relationships are so crucial. And maintaining good vibes with the casting director is so important in whatever market you're in, of course.
How do you desire or manage? I say, how do you manage your desire for creative control on projects while also assuring you stay open to input and collaboration?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, Well, I like to think that I'm a pretty collaborative person, and I'm not expert enough in the world of filmmaking to think that it's like, oh, it's my way or the highway, or I know exactly how this should go. And even as an actor, that's one thing I'm thinking about as I'm moving into a trap door, is a lot of times I think actors will get an idea of how a scene should go. And then what we end up doing is kind of engaging in this way of how we've prepared it instead of just staying present to whatever's happening this time. So I think similarly as a director or someone who's producing, I would much rather be collaborative and hear other people's ideas. And I think at some point a director has to be the decider, though. You have to be definitive. And there's a lot of responsibility, and that goes even into the editing room. Like the one thing I like about acting is like you come, you do your job, and you walk away, and like, okay, yay, I'm done with that. But as a
Yes.
director, you're just much more involved throughout the whole process, pre-production all the way into post-production, and it's just a lot. And because I juggle a lot of things for my own for financial reasons, and also because I have multiple passions, sometimes I'm like, but I kind of want to be done now. I want to just teach class and take pictures and hang out with Angela and my dog. But the editor's like, David, you have to come into this editing session and figure out what we're going to do with this. So getting back to your question, I think it's just being open-minded. I mean, I want to have an open mind. I want to be ready to collaborate. And a lot of times I'm working with professionals who have more experience than me. Usually I'm working with a DP who's been in the business longer than I have. That's usually what I want to do, is I want to surround myself with people who have a little more experience than me, because then my learning just continues.
Let's go down that avenue with the DP. Have you ever had any challenges arise? If you, the director, and the DP, you see it one way, the DP is like, maybe we should do it this way. Has there been any kind of clashes in that? And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to figure out. I mean, a good DP is going to fight for their what they think is interesting, or what they think is the best kind of shot that's appropriate for the scene. And I like that. I want that, because I come at directing a little more from a performance world, and I'm less educated about shot selection and much more into helping actors let go and connect and play the scene to the best of their ability. So I'm open for input from DPs for sure. I just want to work with the DPs that I like. Because I mean, there's different ways that people communicate, as we all know. So I mean, I think as long as a DP is not trying to railroad me as a director, and this is also a great opportunity for an AD to be kind of an intermediary, to kind of like, if we can get, because the AD is usually going like, well, we also don't have an unlimited amount of time to get our shots for the day. So sometimes that'll be the deciding factor, where maybe we got the shot that I wanted, but the DP is like, well, I think we should do this. Occasionally the AD will just go, well, I wish we could, but we just don't have time. But again, I want to stay open, because I think that I'm learning on the job. And a lot of times the DP, a good DP, they're going to have great vision and great ideas. And obviously, as you know, a lot of times, sometimes on set, you suddenly, even if, on my shot list that seemed perfect or whatever, you get to set and you're like, oh my gosh, what about this? And hopefully we just have time for the what about this shot. because
Yeah.
those are sometimes the most interesting, is the ones you kind of discover. We used to call them happy accidents, and hopefully we have time for those kind of things when we're collaborating.
I know you're short on time, so I'm going to try to wrap this up really quick. How do you handle criticism and feedback?
I mean, I love praise, so bring it on.
Yeah.
No, we get that not only as educators, like we receive criticism and feedback, and we make adjustments when we think those are needed, for sure. Because I think if we can't grow or learn from things, no matter what we're doing, because I think people are, and this is obviously good for actors to know, because actors are people, and people screw up all the time. Like, people just are flawed. We make mistakes. I make I say terrible things. I've done terrible things. I've done a lot, but I think the ratio, I think I've done more good. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, there's this kind of scale of, because I don't think anybody's just like this saint. Well, maybe there are. I mean, there are saints, but then you're like, really? I mean, where are the skeletons? I'm just saying, I think
Right.
we all know that nobody's perfect. So I think getting feedback is really helpful. I get it as an actor. I haven't. Have I taken an? I don't think I've taken an acting class recently. I should. But as actors are constantly getting either feedback or even just a redirection. And redirection is not necessarily criticism. It's just, hey, what if you just added in this kind of idea too? And it's not that the actor was doing anything wrong. It's just that the director wants to kind of add one more layer, or they want to see the scene move in a different direction, and so they'll try to do it that way. But I really think that as long as when we're receiving feedback, it's kind of seasoned with, or it's tempered with, like, I guess constructive, right? The criticism, when it's constructive and when it's not just mean or mean spirited, that's the best kind. Because then you can kind of take a beat and meditate on it, and then decide, all right, maybe that was just what I needed to hear. Because then we can shift a bit. And at the end of the day, especially when it comes to teaching or photography or acting or any of this stuff, I want to get better at all of those things. I want to do it better. I want to be the best that I can be and provide either a performance or a service and continue to grow. So I definitely think feedback and criticism are needed, for sure.
So docking the ship into port, you had mentioned, the question was, what are you working on right now or in the near future? You said Trapdoor.
Luckily, I'm fortunate enough to be juggling a lot of really cool things. So, which is great. You know, it keeps me out of trouble, which is important. Happy wife, happy life. So I'm out of trouble. Angela's happy with me, and that's all good. Angela and I are collaborating on a Trapdoor. So that's a short film that we're both working on. It's partially, we got a little bit of it already in the can, and 4 more days at the end of this month, and that goes into editing, and then probably into a festival run, hopefully, if all things go well. And that's been awesome. Working with Angela and is always a pleasure, and we have a good working relationship. We work together here at the studio as teachers. When we were working together, we both worked in the dog services business, so we're kind of used to hanging out and working together and being a team. And I mean, it's not 100% perfect all the time, but we give each other feedback, and we grow and we change and we make it work. And so the Trapdoor is really going well, and we're excited. And then, as you mentioned, Titanish, I have 3 more weeks of that at Seattle Public Theater. This really fun parody of Titanic. It's Titan-ish. It's a musical parody. My character doesn't do a lot of singing, but there's great singing in it. There's a lot of comedy. I play Kaladin Hockley, which was the Billy Zane role, and my character is just terrible. He's the worst. But talk about, like, leaving it at the job. I mean, yeah, I play a misogynistic a-hole the whole time, but clearly it's all in fun. And when I take off my costume, you know, clearly I don't bring Caledon Hockley home with me. So Titanic, that's going for 3 more weeks. People should come out and see that for sure. My photo studio, Seattle Actor Photos, that's grooving along. I'm expanding my business a bit and getting a bit more into pet photography, like pet portraiture, probably mostly dogs because I'm a dog nut, but also probably adding some portraits of people, senior portraits, outdoor stuff. I'll probably build that into my service next year. And then our acting studio, we just had we've had guest instructors come into the studio in August, which we always love. We had Paul Weber, a casting director from Los Angeles. We had Steve Braun from BGB Studio, which is also out of Los Angeles. So we bring in guest instructors. We have Ryan Spicard coming back for a Fighting on Film workshop. We just do so much really cool stuff down here at the studio, putting actors on tape, coaching. It's really this studio where I'm at right now. It's down in Georgetown, and it's just whenever I come in here, because Angela and I, she's kind of turned me into a neat and tidy freak. I was a little bit neat and tidy, but she is much more organized and into kind of like cleanly. I'm not saying I'm dirty, come on, but she's tidy, which I love. But the space that we create, whenever I come in here, I'm like, I just really love being here. It's a great spot down at Orcas Business Park. We love our landlords, so that's getting back to relationships and community. When you find people, whether it's a producer or a friend or a landlord or a casting director, don't take it for granted. And also do your best to nurture that and stay good with those people, because I tell you, man, this place has been just great for us. And relationships are everything. So especially for the actors out there, relationships are so key. Your relationship with other actors, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with being an artist. Like, how do you feel about being an artist? Because for me, I can tell you, it's a little bit like this. Man, I love this. It's so great. Oh, I'm going to quit. What am I doing? No, man, I'm killing it. Oh, dude, that was a great performance. I think I'm done. I haven't been hired for a while. It's not, I don't know. Oh, man, I just got cast in Titanic. We're killing it. Oh, my God, people love it. So it can be very up and down. So your relationship not only to the work and to the craft and to this business that is very unpredictable, it's really important to figure out how to navigate that. And for a lot of people, when I got started, a lot of the teachers that I would, usually books I'd read from the gurus who are writing books for, I don't know, for everybody, but almost all of them are like, okay, actors, don't forget, you're probably going to need a therapist. So I'm like, there's nothing wrong with counseling too, you know? It can take a toll. And I think we've already mentioned that idea that in this world of acting, because there is so much rejection, I think you have to figure out a way to deal with that in a healthy way, which, you know, as if you haven't put it together, people who are watching, one of the reasons why we started producing back in 2012 was because we wanted to make opportunities for ourselves. Yes, my wife and I both had talent agents. We were already in the industry. We worked, but we were not working enough. And so we're like, well, what about the 48-hour film project? Let's start there. And let's do this short film here, and let's figure that out. And let's learn about this. Do you think we can do a feature film? Well, not all by ourselves, but what if we produced with some friends? And so a lot of the reasons for producing is because, you know, we want to keep working.
2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
No sweat.
This one will be easy. What's your favorite tech when it comes to film production?
My favorite tech? Oh my gosh. You know, lately I don't know if it's my favorite tech, but I saw someone, I was on a set recently. I think the film new name is called My Face. It was a team of Ukrainian filmmakers. We made this awesome action movie. And my character's name, at least when we were making the movie, was simply just called Boss. boss.
That's awesome.
Because he was the boss.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to do.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I got to do a few stunts, but what they used for their slate, it was on the iPad, completely digital. Because I've seen the slates, the slates that have the digital readout, but they were just
Yep.
using the iPad to slate. I was like, well, that's cool technology. So that was pretty impressive. I was also recently on a set where I had a day on a local feature film called Evergreens, and I'm pretty sure that the location sound mixer, or whoever put the lav pack on me, they're like, oh, and don't worry, I'll turn it off for you. You don't have to worry about turning off your mic pack if you don't want to be heard talking, or if you go to the bathroom. We do that now remotely. So I'm like, what? You got the remote control off on for the lavalier, or the lavalier, depending on how you like to pronounce that word. So I thought that was cool. But outside of tech, I already knew the answer would be, if the thing that, and I've mentioned it already, I think the thing that I want to try to bring to the film set is a collaborative spirit and an open mind. So I'm not just like, it's going to be this way. I know how it's going to be, beep, beep, beep. I want to collaborate. I want to stay open-minded. I want to have an open heart. So when we get to work, it's just done, because I've been on film sets that just feel very stressful. Go, go, go. We got to make the day. And I don't like that feeling of tension. So I think if we're able to breathe, enjoy the journey, and yes, a lot of times we are trying to do things within a certain timeline, or maybe the movie is very serious, or there's stunts involved, so we all have to be very focused. I still think we can also go, hey, we're blessed to be here. Don't take it for granted. Let's have some fun, and let's just enjoy this time together, because we're creating.
You ready for the last question?
Sure, I think so.
How do you feel about AI?
I think that, my knowledge of how problematic it could be to the industry, it's just pretty naive. I guess I don't quite know enough about how damaging it could be, but I know that it's frightening enough that there's been, strikes and all kind of things that have happened with new contracts through SAG-AFTRA, and even with video games. And so I know there's definitely some problems with it. But because I think the only time I feel like I'm engaging with AI is mostly if I go in to use maybe ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey, write me a 2-page scene about two characters who are fighting because the husband likes to Dutch oven every now and again, and it's driving his wife crazy. So I'm so disconnected from the world of AI. I don't know how big of a problem it is. Do you know? Should I be scared?
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I mean, there's buzz and talk. I know that the video game industry right now are on strike because of
right.
Taking your image. I know actors were also against the fact of using their voice.
Yes.
Scarlett Johansson, one of the AI guys, I don't know who it was going to use her voice, just like the movie Her.
Yeah.
Right. And so they wanted to emulate that. I know there's apps out there that copy celebrities' voices that you can play around with. So, I mean, it's that type of thing where you're using someone else's image without their permission, without any payment, and it's just there. And if someone wanted to make a movie using AI and just imagery, not hiring any actors, they could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be very good, but
not yet anyway.
That's the argument. And the argument is it going to be better? Which progressively it is. It's getting better and better and better. So that's the one thing.
I mean, I suppose it certainly sounds, it sounds bad. It sounds scary, but I think that part of, at some point, at least what I think worrying I'm not saying we shouldn't. We should just bury our head in the sand. But for me personally, I think the anxiety and worry, we're all going to be affected by. There was this really good book I read quite a few years ago called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And the basic gist is that so many problems for humans come from either dwelling in the past or freaking out about the future. So because maybe I'm, I don't know, sensitive or fragile, I am an actor, so it's probably got something to do with that. I feel like when I spend too much time worrying about what's going to happen next or fretting that I'm never going to work again as an actor or whatever, that just really affects my mental health. And maybe I'm just like, well, all those people who are smarter than me, who know about this AI problem, maybe they're going to figure it out for me. And maybe that's maybe that's not fair. Maybe I should get more on top of it. But I certainly agree that all of those things that are happening are it's completely ridiculous that technology, I mean, it's clearly that's not fair. Clearly you shouldn't be able to replicate a famous person's voice and then use that to sell advertisements without paying the person whose voice you're replicating. Clearly that's crazy. I just don't know how to combat it, I guess. And I guess that is why I do think that unions, for the most part, are helpful in protecting actors. And I think that from the sense I get about the strikes and what happened first with WGA and then SAG-AFTRA, all that stuff was very necessary, even though at the time everybody's like, oh my gosh, how long is this strike going to go on? We're never going to get back to work. And now we're all dealing with kind of post-COVID. Are we ever going to get back to when the work was really booming, which I don't know when that was, but you read things, and I'm not sure if you follow the news about production overall feeling. Did I read that it was down 40% from 2022? Maybe that seems like an awfully big number.
Studio houses are doing layoffs. Yep.
So it's definitely getting back to that kind of fear and anxiety thing. That's real for actors, and I think that we feel the pinch in the Northwest. I think you're probably on the same boards that I'm on, and I listen to a lot of the crew, even more than the actors, and a lot of crew folks are like, yeah, the work just hasn't been here. And crew, as you know, in the Northwest are like, they're relying on some of these corporate gigs, Amazon, Microsoft, the kind of bigger houses who are creating corporate videos. And I think a lot of those kind of jobs started to shrink in this post-COVID world too. So it's scary.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us back to the what is your why thing, because I think there's a lot of mythology and there's fantasy around wanting to be an actor. But I think you have to want to be an actor because the acting thing, you can't live without it, and you love it, and you love storytelling, or you love connecting, or you love being a part of this. There has to be a very, very passionate reason to pursue this thing, because getting back to the fear thing, it's almost impossible to make a lot of money doing this acting thing.
Oh, yeah.
So there has to be other motivators to really make it worthwhile, and of course have some really cool side hustles. Yeah.
Network connection.
Right.
Well, let's
Exactly.
not end on a bad note. Let's talk up. Everyone go out and get the
Exactly.
book, The Power of Now. It's very good. And thank you so much, David S. Hogan, for being on the Downing Cut. How can people reach you? What is the most popular way?
That's a good question.
And we'll
social channels.
link everything.
We got the social channels, of course. At David S. Hogan, that's me. At Mighty Tripod, that's the teaching, producing, self-taping, education. And at Seattle Actor Photos, if you need a headshot. Yeah, especially if you're an actor just getting into this business, reach out. I'd love to talk, get you into a class, do some coaching, help you with your next audition. anything you want, we're here for you.
Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm glad you had me on. It's really great to spend some
worries.
time, and congratulations. Keep doing this. I think it's really awesome what you're up to. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.